Thank you for joining us for week 12 of our discussion on the subject, Can You Fix Nigeria? Today I have with me Mr. Adeola Adeyanju. He's the MD of CNOT Resources, and he's joined us previously during this challenge. He handled the issue on the housing. Mr. Adeyanju, you're welcome again tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Kintayo. You know, it's always a pleasure to have these conversations around Nigeria, in fact, around any issue with you. It's always fun.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. So tonight we're covering the issue, the very pertinent issue of youth unemployment and labor reforms. And let me just give you a bit of a background to where I think this is a bit of a concern for me. So recently I was reading the stats from Nigeria Office of Statistics. And I don't know if you recall the young gentleman who manages that office, Mr. Yemi Kale, ex-Stanbic Bank, right? IBTC Stanbic.
And we have to say that he's doing a phenomenal job.
Fantastic guy. I mean, a fantastic guy. We know this chap. We know he's always on top of stuff. So I was just reading some stuff from that office. And they put our youth unemployment, our unemployment numbers in Nigeria at about 8%. At about 8% now. The reason I introduced Yemi first is that Yemi is usually on top of things. So when Yemi says 8%.
Did you say 8%?
They said 8%. And that's why I'm checking it. I want to challenge.
I'm checking the data again just to be sure. I mean, I have the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics data up, and I'm also looking at it. So yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, my worry is that usually Yemi is on top of stuff. So when he says 8%, I'm a bit dubious about that number. I'm not very clear about that number, because for me, the numbers on unemployment in Nigeria are much higher. It's got to be. Yeah. Okay. Then I'll tell you the second issue which I have. When you look at information outside Nigeria official statistics. I mean, you look at UN numbers, ILO numbers, not only for Nigeria, but for most of Sub-Saharan Africa, those numbers are hovering between 45 and 54%, which is a lot higher. Now, so my question is, first, how do you assess the level of unemployment in Nigeria? Are we closer to this 8% number or closer to the 50% number? I know you will not have an exact number, but what is your gut feel about that? Adi, I think I lost you there. Okay.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now. So my question to you, Adi, was that what is your gut feel? I know you don't have an exact number. Are we closer to the 8% or closer to the 50%? In your
okay,
view?
I think the first issue, and like you said, a lot of respect for Dr. Kale. I think he's done an amazing job. He's the first person that has finally allowed me to rely on data from Nigeria.
Correct.
So I realize that a number of these statistics is about also classification. When you see the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics data, you will find things like Nigerians willing to work is what he categorizes as his own basket of unemployed. So if you're willing to work but you don't have a job, then you're deemed unemployed.
I see.
The numbers from the UN, from ILO, and all the other organizations just looks at the number of unemployed Nigerians.
Generally.
So Kale makes distinguishes between the absolute numbers and those that have almost no skill to trade.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's not enough to just be a body. Being a human, as you and I have experienced, having lived in Lagos for some time, you know that it's not everybody who is in Lagos that is willing to work.
Correct.
It's sometimes more profitable to beg on the side of the road, to sit in your house and call one uncle, call another auntie, and at the end of the day, you're making more money than people that are working.
Now working. No, yeah, but you see, to be honest, it's not a Nigerian problem, is it? I mean, yeah, even in the US or in the UK, there are people who are better off being on dole than actually working.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yes, so depending on whether it's a government welfare system or family-based or whatever, but yes, some people for some people, the numbers make more sense to stay on welfare. Let's put it
to stay on welfare, I see.
Because if you're going to get a job as a guy who's going to earn 20,000, 25,000, you would have to transport, eat out of that 20,000, 25,000. You might as well sit at home
I'll sit
and
at
hope
home.
that one uncle will give you 5,000. You're now uncle. Even if it's 10,000 you get from those family people, you're better off than going to work.
Than going to work. Your net position is better off, I see.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, I see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but okay, but Ade, how do you see this on the level of unemployment in Nigeria? Is that is that a major concern for you?
In fact, I think that I consider that is Nigeria's #1 security risk. The number
I agree completely.
It's a keg of gunpowder that can go off at any point, as we saw when the NSAS protest was taken over by people who thought it was an opportunity, yes, to loot. And as we speak, Lagos, at least talking about, I can't speak for the whole of Nigeria, Lagos has still not recovered from those 2-3 days of these boys going on rampage. So, as we also saw, they overpowered the security forces in terms of police.
Correct.
With so much ease that the myth of Lagos is secure or that there's police has just gone to the gutters. We now have, yes, go on.
No, I mean, I was just going to respond to what you said. We knew that it was always an under-policed country. I mean,
absolutely.
It's always.
But we didn't know how bad it was. So, in terms of the numbers, I would agree with the ILO one, because whether you are willing to work or you are not willing to work, the key thing is that you're a Nigerian and you don't have a job. It's closer to the 45-50% number. Absolutely.
But Ade, but bottom line is for me though, what is driving that? That number is high. I mean, when you and I were growing up, right, we will hear US unemployment numbers or unemployment numbers in the UK. It will typically be between 3 to 7%. 3 to 7%. I mean, by the time you get to 6, people are getting worried. So for us to be thinking 30-40% unemployment, that is huge, isn't it?
Okay, so I mean, if you take even the US today, they are doing, well, it's come down a bit under Trump, but prior to Trump,
it was, in fairness,
it was really bad.
Yeah.
But if there's a lesson to learn, as I always say, is that whatever you reward in life multiplies. So today, it's up until maybe about 8-9 months ago, it made more sense to put your money in government bonds and the rest than to actually run a business.
Correct.
The typical downstream industry business returns about 4. In fact, the high performing ones like mobile downstream in those days will return 4.5%. The ones who were okay, were not badly run, but were doing okay, will return 2.5-3% in terms of profitability.
Wow, that is low. It's
a high turnover. It's a high volume, high turnover business. A liter of diesel, maybe 200 naira. You're going to make 10 naira on that 200. Those are, in fact, that 10 naira is generous. You're not going to make 10 naira. So you're looking at 3%. Meanwhile, that same money, if you kept it in government bonds, in those days, you could get 16-18%.
16-18%, I see.
And you had zero risk as compared to the guy who was running a business who sometimes they wake him up, there's fire in the tank farm, there's this, there's theft, all of those worries. So Nigerians then developed an appetite for what I call easy money. So that the guys who even had the means to set up businesses realized that it was a lot better to just put it in the bank. Absolutely.
Wow.
So even when I started business, I had friends who told me, why are you putting yourself under this stress? One of them told me, look, I can't stress myself. I'm just going to fix my money. The upfront, and that's the other beautiful part about doing government treasury.
You get the money upfront as well.
So I have to wait till the end of the year to know if I have made money. This guy gets 18% of his money upfront. Of that 18%, he will buy treasury bill with some of the interest again and collect the interest on it upfront. And so it's a fractional system. So when you look at that, there's very little incentive to actually start up things where you can employ people.
Adi, see, this thing that you have just said to me, I remember in week 6, I had this discussion with Dr. Adeola, and I said to her, for me, this is the key thing that is killing our economy. the bank rates, the banking and fiscal policies in Nigeria is completely wrong. There's something wrong with it. It's not possible for us to be giving loans to entrepreneurs at 29% and fixing treasury bills at 18% and think that we're going to make progress as a country. It's not possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's not possible.
I would say, in fairness to the Central Bank of Nigeria, in the last 12, 15 months, I have to be honest, they have been a lot more proactive. They have been a lot more forward-thinking than even I've ever imagined. They've come up with all kinds of loans, all kinds of grants, where interest rates is as low as 6-7%, single-digit interest rates. And more importantly, they have crashed the interest on savings, on treasury bills. In fact, nobody is interested in buying treasury bills today because they wanted to force people to take those monies dormancy to go and put into the real sector.
It made sense. It made sense. They needed to put it in.
I think the uncoordinated approach to solving that problem. So you have a CBN encouraging people to take money, do business, do all of that. But you have other arms of government. So from the ports to VAT to Lagos states, depending on whatever state you find yourself, they are all the same anyway. Lagos state just is a lot more aggressive about revenue collection. You then find out that you are bombarded by so much government rent collection, where the same government has not provided anything to support your business. For so much rent collection, at some points, I have to be honest, you ask yourself, is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Ade, I think it's a good question you've asked. And luckily for me, I'm doing a session with Mr. Odunuga and Mr. Ayo in 2 weeks on the ease of doing business in Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
So in 2 weeks' time, I'm doing that. That's going to be fantastic. Actually, it's a good point that you've raised. Okay.
Fantastic.
So what I'm hearing from you really is that we have high unemployment, youth unemployment, mainly because there's no incentive to do business. The incentive
That's
to
one.
Yeah.
So even for the guys who are doing business, as you and I know, in terms of production, in terms of manufacturing, at some point it was almost as good as dead. Because it's a lot cheaper to just import, warehouse it, and sell, be a trader than to be a manufacturer. And you will know that a manufacturing plant would hire 200, 300 people of different classes, as compared to a trading company that just requires 2 people to sit in the warehouse, 1 person to collect.
One accountant,
4-5-man organization. So even when businesses exist, they have been streamlined slightly to trading rather than being actual producers, because the numbers are in production. When we're talking about, I remember we were talking about housing.
Yeah.
We did say that housing could have become a major
for taking people on.
Yeah, whether it's construction of infrastructure and I still think to some extent that's probably the part of Nigeria that has kept this youth unemployment down. Because again, for a lot of those things, to be a laborer, you don't have any skill requirements. You can just move things, carry things.
Just move things and carry manual labor.
You can find jobs there. The mason can find a job. The carpenter can find something to do. It remains probably the one part of Nigeria in terms of mass employment that continues to, whether it's at the federal level or on the private sector where people are developing estates and all of those things. They have continued to employ people. But you see, even with that, I see it already plateauing because with a slowdown in terms of people's ability to make money.
People are not
have a lot of those property. So even the developers now have to ask themselves questions: How long can I continue to just build properties that I can't sell?
That you cannot sell.
Yeah. So I think even that will slow down. A number of the people who worked on those sites, now you see a number of them just sitting around, either looking to become an omonile or something, not because they don't want to work. So I think that's part of the problem. Thirdly, I think that we have, there's a shift in the type of employer we have in Nigeria. It's an employer's market, which means that the employer can take advantage of those looking for work. So if demand far outstrips supply, then the guys at the supply end can jack up their rates or whatever. So in this instance, they can afford to tell people, sorry, I can pay you 25,000. If you don't want it,
you walk away.
Other people.
Yeah.
So you see, I find that the bigger challenge is the substitution in terms of the type of employer. We have moved from global brands. We've moved from people who had global best practices in terms of employee staff management. So even if they wanted to be exploitative in Nigeria, but because globally they had requirements to do those things, they still had to pay people living wages and all of that. There's a shift from those kinds of employers to employers that are more exploitative, even by their culture in their own countries.
Correct. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I'm trying not to mention names. And you see those work conditions. It's kind of people who tell people they can't take lunch break, they can't go to toilets. It's almost as good as slavery in your own country just to earn pittance.
So, I understand what you're saying fully. You know, when we graduated, you and I went to work in Accenture or Anderson.
Yeah.
There were companies that had standards. Do you understand?
Absolutely. And even if you didn't end up, even in manufacturing, you end up in a PZ,
Pfizer, Unilever, that kind of player.
But today, you are most likely, so the industries that are doing exactly the same thing that PZ was doing and are still doing, but they are either Nigerian or they are owned by people of a Far Eastern extraction.
Yes.
And the
standards are different.
Absolutely. I mean, I did my youth service in Nigeria, right? And even as a copper, they treated me like some superstar engineer. Yeah, engineer. No, you have to be in the senior staff canteen.
I see.
These people, even you as an engineer, is looked down upon. Some uneducated fellow from their country tries to show you that he is boss. So even for the guys who have employment, they are underemployed. That's what I was going to get to.
No, I see your point, and that makes sense. Actually, you have come full circle back to where we started, isn't it? Because, you know, when I look at that United Nations numbers, those 45 to 50% includes both the unemployed and the underemployed.
Yes.
Correct. So you've come back full circle. You're absolutely right. But let me take that discussion somewhere else, though, Adi. Now, one of the things that people have said about us as Nigerians, right, is that our universities, our undergraduates are not good enough. Yeah, I'm going to ask you two questions here, because that might not be a fair statement, but let me ask you two questions. Now, I'm thinking about it that, give or take, there must be at least 200 institutions of higher learning in Nigeria, give or take. Yeah, at least. Because almost every state has one, at least almost two universities, polytechnics. Yeah, so private. So there must be some high number, and each of those guys will be graduating 150 to 500 to 1,000 students every year. So every year we're putting easily 200,000 graduates into the market. Now,
more than that, but
exactly. So if we are not creating jobs to suck up these guys, if we're not every year, we're not taking off at least 70 to 80% of that, then we are creating a crisis for ourselves, aren't we? Do you understand?
So I agree with you.
Okay.
I have to be honest. I think that the idea of jobs also needs to change. 20 years ago, 22 years ago, when we were leaving the university, conversation was you and I looked at, I want to work in oil servicing, I want to work in the producing companies.
Correct.
I never even heard of Accenture. At the time I was graduating, was after
at the time we graduated, yes.
Consulting it's a good option. So, but I think that increasingly and it goes back to the type of education we're getting. So those in terms of education, they're still preparing people for opportunities for those kinds of jobs, even if they don't have the technical competence. Or they're still mentally preparing them to, I want to go and work in a Shell, I want to work in a. But in reality, the numbers those guys can take, even if they were employing every year, it's a fraction. I think that even in terms of preparation of people as they left or as they leave in university, it needs to start turning more towards entrepreneurship, because increasingly 3, 4, 5, 6 young people need to start coming together to start something small.
To start something together.
Yes.
No,
We have to get away from this somebody must employ me mentality.
I agree with you. See, you just made a statement there, which I agree with. This idea that I'm going to go and work in Shell, or I mean, some of those companies have an embargo on employment that's lasted 7-8 years now.
Absolutely.
The last EMP company I worked for had not employed a graduate engineer for at least 5 years. My last 5 years there.
And so, they're trying to get it, and even trying to get rid of some of the people that are already there. They think they're overstaffed.
Yeah, yes. So really, you're right. The mentality needs to change. That I mean, and we should be really looking at entrepreneurship. I agree.
And for me, that's one. Two, there are now opportunities where you can sit in Nigeria and literally work anywhere in the world if you and the right kind of business in the right kind of field. So
and the right skill.
I see increasingly young people. If you're a coder, you can be in Nigeria and be coding for somebody in God knows where. And these guys are constantly looking for people.
For coders, so I think
yes. Even in terms of the people in the job markets and the opportunities that are available, there's a mismatch. We're churning out surveyors, churning out the same kinds of people
that we were doing 40 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, but the jobs are different. So I mean, every now and then I'll get people who send me stuff and say, "Oh, if you can help me find," but I find that almost everybody I know do not fit into those type of opportunity because they don't have those skill sets.
Wow, fantastic. I've not thought about it that way. So basically what you're saying is actually we're training them wrong as well.
Oh, no. I mean, I think that's a foregone conclusion. Yes.
No, I've not thought about it, you know? So basically we're not getting them ready for the market which exists today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I told somebody, you're better off spending your 4 years of or 5 years of engineering doing entrepreneurship or doing what do you call it now? Apprenticeship.
Correct.
With a trader or something. 5 years down the line, the guy who's doing apprenticeship is in a much better place to take off in terms of career, in terms of his opportunities, and the guy who's gone to school.
Yeah.
Yes, you will speak English.
Good English.
You will have certificates, but the guys, I mean, look, I have a number of friends who 10 years ago, when we were already speaking English and having titles of manager, this, manager, that, we're still probably just learning trade or learning so whatever, or just starting some small businesses. Today, some of those guys own some of the largest spare parts business in Ladipo, in this and that.
I see.
They are far ahead of the people who are still waiting for a job. The ones who took up catering, the ones who took up fashion designing, the ones who took up events management, they moved on with life.
Ade,
but
see,
saying,
what you're saying, see, this thing that you're saying, I've always said it to, I mean, like, you know, I've done a lot of expert jobs. And I always find that one of the central problems we have as a race is that anywhere we go as Black people, we're always trying to look for work. If you meet an Indian or a Chinese guy, he's not coming to your country to look for work. He's coming to invest and to create work. Whether
Absolutely.
It's a restaurant or a bakery or whatever, he's always investing and creating his own job. And so, like you rightly said, we need to change that mentality and move towards more of entrepreneurship than people looking for work. But let me ask you a question which always seems to strike my mind as well. I always feel that our labor laws also does not help.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I'm thinking this. Okay, so one, I know our strike rules are still what it was in the 60s and 50s. It's only in Nigeria that people will go for strike for 9 months, 10 months, and they will get paid every day of that 9 months. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, nowhere else. And if you look at it, I say to our friends and to all the people that I know, in the last 20 years or 22 years that I know, there's no year ASU has not been on strike. There's no year that Nigerian Medical Association has not been on strike. It's just, for me, I find it ridiculous that people can go for strike for so long and their cost. ASU just went on a 10-month strike in Nigeria and they're paid. So I think there's also something to be said about our labor laws. Okay, so So this was one thing. The second thing I see, Ade, is also this. I worked in E&P companies in Nigeria. I've worked in E&P companies. There are people who are not able to pull their weight. You know he's not able to pull his weight, but you cannot fire him. On one of the places where I worked, and this person was accused of corruption, and the company wanted to discipline him, but they couldn't. So there are also issues like that, which I think, and because we're not allowing companies, do you understand, to be able to do what they know is best, they are just costing. At least most of those good companies that you mentioned earlier, in my view, many of them are just costing. When was the last time that Exxon did an investment in Nigeria? Do you understand? So what do you think about this? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Is there something we can do about our labor laws?
So again, these things are usually about perspective, and I'm always careful not to see if you're a good person, you then tend to always see good. How did we get to where we are, where everybody is in one union or the other?
Correct.
Correct. It all started from employers, whether it's governments, in the case of people like ASU, or oil and gas unions or whatever. It all started from them being insensitive and not being proactive in terms of managing. The major reasons why people thought they needed the union to fight for them was because they were not getting a fair shake or a good deal, as the case may be. Today is now in excess. The examples you gave, either in terms of people you can't fire poor quality people, or people going on strike in perpetuity and still getting paid. Now, those are one extreme. But in those same companies that you have talked about, imagine that they didn't have union. Nigerians will probably not hold some positions till today. It took you to demand and say, look, we have Nigerians that can do this work that you keep bringing in experts. It has to change. It has to change. It was Malcolm X that said those who make peaceful changes impossible. Make
violent
changes inevitable.
Correct.
Now, I am not a Malcolm fan, because I'm not a fan of violence, but I find that very often, Englishman says that a stitch in time saves 9. By the time you get to the 9, somebody has forgotten that there was a time when a stitch could have saved you making 9 of them. Now the hem is now fully torn, and you're saying, oh, look at all the money I need to spend now to sew this thing. But when you first saw it, and you could have just used one stitch, could have saved the situation. So I find that this unionism itself is a response to a deficit. You make promise today, you don't keep it. You make promise tomorrow, you don't keep it. You make promise next tomorrow, you don't keep it. And as individuals, I cannot fight you or the system. So we then gather. But like everything else in life, eventually it will be subject to abuse. And that's what we see with the unions, where, oh, now it's my townsman, you cannot sack him. No. We see you cannot sack him. Or, okay, take the ASU strike, for instance. ASU, if I remember correctly, went on strike because they didn't want to be put on government new payroll system. The government insisted that new payroll system was important because a lot of them were double dipping. Same lecturer, working in Unilag, working in Unimate, I was getting full salary as a full employee in 3-4 universities. Once you put this information into IPs, you can't get paid in 2 different places.
You can't get paid in 2 places, exactly.
Those are realities. But when ASU went on strike, they would now put other things that they know that other percent the commitment of government to education, the percentage of national budgets, the standard. But in reality, the fight was more about, I want to be able to collect salary in 4 or 5 different places. Nobody else does that.
Yeah.
So
it's just.
So, but my point is, we have come down this road because those who were employers historically also abused employees.
Okay. I see your point. I think
to mend it, we have to go back to a place where we start going back to, whether it's Nigerian Medical Association or ASU, every time to end this strike, government will make commitments, and consistently they fail to keep the commitments. It's difficult to tell these guys that you don't need the union to fight government. If a government proactively on its own says, look, we have adjusted the cost of living based on depreciation, based on inflation, based on, we've now adjusted it by 5% for this year. We have given it data and why 5% is what we can do. Everybody moves on. But if you don't do anything 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years down the line,
after
100% increase, the people will say, yes, it's justified. We have to get back to a place where...
Okay, so Ade, but this is terrible, isn't it? This is a catch-22. Do you understand?
I do agree with you.
It's a catch-22. It's like what people used to say about NEPA in those days. Oh, please pay your NEPA bill. No, I can't pay NEPA because they're not giving us any money. They're not giving us any power. But if you don't pay, then
I can't give you light because they're not paying.
Exactly. So
you see, what I would say is that every new administration always starts out with a lot of goodwill. Every new administration, at least in Nigeria, there's a belief based on the rhetorics that they're going to do something different, they're going to be better. And at those points, commitments that they make keeps these unions at bay for a while. It wasn't different from when Oshibajo went into South to sit with militants.
Indeed, yeah.
And that conversation, that truce, it held. In fact, in my opinion, is what has saved Nigeria.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely on that one. Yeah.
You know, so in the same vein, I think that if we have more, that's the other thing though, if we have more competent people on the government side of things, negotiating with people. Because people think, oh, negotiation is I'll just come and tell you. Negotiation is a skill. People are expert negotiators. People get trained in it.
Yes, people go to school to learn that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So appointing you as a minister doesn't automatically confer on you the ability to negotiate. And we see that all the time. The unions, on the other hand, are master negotiators. The organization send them for negotiation trade. They think it makes them more reasonable to discuss.
It doesn't matter for me, yeah. The last area I wanted to, under Babangida, there used to be something they called the National Directorate of Employment. I don't know whether you remember it, NDE.
Yes.
And basically that directorate, they used to keep a log of people coming out, okay, who is out of work, that kind of thing, and see how they can match them to opening jobs. Do we need something like that now? Because for me, this level of youth unemployment, for me, I find it a bit unacceptable, really.
Do we need something like that? My answer will be yes, but maybe not at the federal level.
Good idea. I see what you mean. Okay.
Maybe not at the federal level. Yeah, but whatever state you're resident in, where you are enjoying public infrastructure, then you should also contribute
in that state. I see.
Yeah, so those states, if they can find you employment, and I keep going back to the issue of employment. If today they say, oh, there's opportunity, they're doing road construction, they need people to do outside of the glamorous options, they're going to find that people will not respond and say, no, I can't do that kind of work.
But why? If you don't have a job, I mean, basically we should, okay, I see your point though. I agree with you that you are absolutely right. I said that also when we had the week one on this, that there's something to be said for people just going to take a 20,000 job, 30,000 job anywhere, rather than sitting at home and complaining about what is available. Go and work and get, because when we go to work, like you and I know, you're not only collecting money, you're building skills.
Absolutely.
Organizational skills, life skills, communication skills. There's more to job than the money that one is going to get.
And this conversation we're having, for me, it's not theoretical. I know people who, there have been opportunities that have called up and say, no, you're not doing anything. You are relying on calling me every now and then. I'm trying to get you a job so that you stop calling me, or at least I reduce my commitment in that area. Wherever I'm getting the money from, you think it's easy? Well, that's the reality of the Nigerian guy. Even the poor man in Nigeria is arrogant.
He's very arrogant. I see.
It's called the poor man's pride.
So anyway, so I think this is, I'm just going to draw a line here. But so Ade, but you know, the final question I always ask is, you are Minister of Labor and Employment, what can we do? What can we do? Please bottom line it for us.
For me, I think it's simple. The utopian idea that governments would employ everybody or provide jobs for everybody is just unrealistic, despite all the Empower and all the other programs that we have. At the end of the day, you see, they'll say, they have now employed 500,000 people or 700,000 people. In a country with 200 million people, 112 million people eligible for work, 700, even if you employ 2 million, it's nothing.
It's less than one.
The focus is moving from government trying to employ people to trying to make it easier for employers to run their businesses so that they can employ people. Because ultimately, that's where the solution is.
That's where the issue is. I see.
You have to keep finding ways to incentivize people to run businesses, which is currently now you are penalized for running a business in Nigeria.
Correct.
They are better off just doing rent collection, collect contract paper, sell it, than actually executing that contract. You are better off importing to trade than actually manufacturing in Nigeria. Because everything in the system in Nigeria is designed to stifle. So if I became a minister for labor and whatever other title they put behind it,
productivity.
The goal has to be to simplify life for employers, to make it easy to run a business. Ease of doing business, which you will discuss with some of my other friends, that goal has to move from paper theory to the reality.
The job done.
Yes, to the reality of their experience. Because unless and until I, as a business person, wake up and I'm excited about running my business in Nigeria, I'm not going to materially employ people. That's where the opportunity is.
Thank you very much, Ade. I think you've actually bottomed down what the issue is, and I see the point you're making. It's a very valid point. It's a very valid point. I know that government has been talking about this ease of doing business. I remember a few years back, I think we were on a listing of about 118. Nigeria was 116 or something ridiculous like that. So it's been very bad. I hope it's improving. We will pick up this discussion anyway with some of our colleagues in the coming weeks. And please tune in for